We're so close to the start of Major League Baseball season with pitchers and catchers set to report this week. Let's look at some names that might surprise you in spring training and throughout the season that you're not familiar with. We'll also get ready for the upcoming MLB Draft with the college baseball season starting this week. A lot of fun on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jacob Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop Ball. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. Follow us on Instagram as well, trying to get things going over there. Got some exciting stuff planned for this upcoming season, so make sure you check us out on Instagram at Locked On Braves. Send me a question there to be answered. If you're new and watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below, and those who are listening on the audio version can help out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And thank you so much for your support here at Locked On Braves, making us your first listen of each and every day, and we're almost there. It's been a very long, really boring offseason for the Atlanta Braves, but pitchers and catchers report this week. We'll be talking about spring training games before you know it, and then we'll get into the regular season. So I cannot wait. Great time of year. Both my oldest two that are playing baseball, they've already had their first practices, so baseball is in the air. We had a glimpse of some spring weather this past week as well before it turned back cold and rainy again, but we are so close, and today begins our spring training coverage. We're going to look at some non-roster invitees and some lesser-known players in spring training that might have a big impact for the Atlanta Braves this year. We'll also spotlight some of the college players that you need to be watching as the college baseball season begins this weekend. So all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Well, I'm really looking forward to this episode. Again, we're kind of kicking off our spring training coverage, which means we are getting really close to the start of the season. And where I want to start in this first segment is I want to look at some players, mostly non-roster invitees, who I think could have an impact. Maybe not a big impact, but could have an impact this upcoming season. Before we do that, though, Mark Bowman, MLB.com, he put out his opening day roster predictions. So I want to go through that really quickly just to kick things off. But these are names that are kind of expected to have some sort of impact this year, so I won't really be talking about many of these guys. But he has Murphy and Trump as the catchers. No surprise there. Olson, Albies, Arcia, and Riley as your infielders. And then in the outfield, Michael Harris, Jurickson Profar, Jared Kelenic, and Brian De La Cruz. Ozuna at DH, Nick Allen, and Luke Williams as your utility bench guys. Christian Cairo is a Rule 5 pick, so the Braves have to keep on the roster or offer him back to his former team. Allen and Winans are both out of options, so that gives them a little bit of a leg up on the competition. I think Allen's the most likely of this group because of his ability to handle shortstop. Granted, I don't know what Cairo looks like at shortstop, but Nick Allen, at least from the limited time that we have seen him at the major league level, he seems pretty solid defensively at shortstop. Both guys are kind of undersized, probably both profile better as second baseman, but Nick Allen does have that big league experience. And again, he's out of options. So I think he's most likely at the moment to get one of those bench utility spots. Sale, Lopez, Schwellenbach, Holmes, and Anderson in the rotation. No real surprise there. Holmes and Anderson being out of options gives them a leg up in spring training to at least begin the season in the rotation till we wait for the return of Strider. In the bullpen, he has Iglesias, Johnson, Lee, Bummer, Daysbull, Angel Perdomo, Anderson Pilar, and Danny Jimenez. Pilar, a Rule 5 draft pick, so he has to be on the roster. Otherwise, you have to offer him back. And I think it's coming off a really good year at the minor league level. I think he could be a solid pick, as we'll talk about in a second. And then Perdomo coming back from Tommy John surgery. He's out of options. So hopefully he can shake off some of the rust in spring training. I think he could be a big arm for the Braves, big left-handed arm for them, would give them 3 lefties in the bullpen. So hoping for big things for him, but don't be surprised if he's a little rusty to begin the season. Probably starts out in some lower leverage situations, but I do think he'll be in the bullpen. And then I doubt Jimenez. It's really the only pick here for Mark Bowman that I just don't agree with. Jimenez, I don't think he's going to make the opening day roster. With the lack of command that he has shown. If he does, he likely isn't there very long. He'd be the first one gone whenever Strider returns and either Holmes or Ian Anderson goes to the bullpen. But those are Mark Bowman's opening day roster predictions as we get ready for spring training. So let me know what you think about that. Now, what I wanted to really talk about in this first segment are the best long shots. Who are the players in spring training, mostly non-roster invitees? Some of these are on the 40-man roster, though. These first two guys I'm going to talk about, or first three guys, rather, that I'm going to talk about. But these are guys that maybe you haven't thought much of, but guys who could play some significant impact. Look, in a long season, you need several different guys to come up and play, big roles for parts of the season for you. I always think back more of the recent one, Travis Demeritte, who came up and had 2 really good weeks for the Braves a couple of years ago. And that was it, but it was a big contribution for that time. And sometimes that's all you need from these guys is somebody goes down and maybe you just need to fill a role for a week or two. Can you hold that spot down? Can you turn it into something more? It's kind of what I'm going to shoot for today. The first two guys I want to talk about, though, are guys who are on the 40-man roster, and that is Davis Daniel, War Eagle, and Dylan Dodd. I'm not sure how the Braves are going to use either of these guys, whether they're going to keep them in a starter role or try to turn them into long relievers. They both have options left, which means they're not likely to begin the year on the opening day roster. Davis especially is probably better served as a AAA stash for the rotation right now. But instead of having Jimenez as your last bullpen option, a guy that doesn't have a lot of control, why not put Davis Daniel or Dylan Dodd at the end of your bullpen to be your guy that can give you some innings earlier in the season when your starters aren't going to go deep in a game? Be your long relief option was what I was trying to say a minute ago. That's the Josh Tomlin role that the Braves use for so long. Even the Jesse Chavez role for years, a guy that can just come in and get some garbage innings for you every now and then. Although when Jesse Chavez does it for the Braves, it's elite type innings. But something like that, I'd almost rather have something like that at the end of my bullpen than an Armin Jimenez that I just can't trust in any type of situation. Bring up a guy like a Davis Daniel and a Dylan Dodd who, somebody gets in trouble. Schwellenbach, gets in trouble. His pitch count gets up in the 80s in the 4th, 5th inning of the game. You can bring in a Davis Daniel. He can give you an inning and 2/3 or 2 innings to kind of bridge that gap. The same for a Dylan Dodd. So I think one of these guys could play a crucial role like that, especially early in the season to help kind of bridge that gap. Again, I don't think they're likely to make the opening day roster. One of the reason being because they both have minor league options. So probably just going to, send them down and use them up, call them up when they absolutely do need them and save some of the other guys that are out of options. But I like both of those guys for that role as kind of, garbage innings eaters to kind of bridge the gap and be there in case a starter can't go deep into a game. The next one on my list that I wanted to talk about is Domingo Gonzalez. Look, they protected him from the 40-man roster this offseason for a reason. He put up good numbers at AAA last year, although the walk rate did go up at AAA, but still he had a 13.97, pretty much a 14 K per nine at AAA last year and over a 14 K per nine on the year between AA and AAA. So there is clearly something there with Domingo Gonzalez that he's able to do well. I'm excited to see what he can do in spring training. It's unlikely he starts the year on the opening day roster because Alex is going to prioritize those guys who are out of options early in the year to keep that depth. That's something he's always looking to do. Look, it drives me crazy at times because do I think Domingo Gonzalez is better than Danny Jimenez? Yes. And for that reason, I think he should probably be in the bullpen over him. But it's not always, unfortunately, about putting the best guys on the roster to begin the season. It's about giving yourself the most depth throughout the year. And so those guys that are out of options, that's why they're usually going to get priority on the opening day roster until they're not needed or until it becomes such a problem that you have to call up the arms that are actually better. And look, we see maybe Jimenez surprises us. Maybe Gonzalez isn't as good as the numbers indicate or what we've seen at AAA. But I think at some point he could become a big arm in the bullpen for the Atlanta Braves. The next one I have is Jordan Weems. He is out of options, but he was signed to a minor league deal. So as long as you don't put him on the 40-man roster and then send him back down to the minors, you control him. So they might not bring him up right away until they know he's for certain that he's going to be a big part of the bullpen. Like if he were to come into spring training and just be lights out, I think you have to put him in there. You have to put him on the 40-man roster and get him in your bullpen. He was good in 2022 and 2023 before having a rough 2024 where his K rate declined by 8%, but his batting average on balls in play went from a ridiculously low 220. That's just unsustainable and way low in one way. And then in 2024, it went up to 328. So it overcorrected. And you're going to see that with a couple of things. It's 272 for his career. It's his BABIP. So it's somewhere in the middle. He's somewhere in between 2023 and 2024. And there was also an overcorrection to his four-seam fastball. In 2023, it had an average against of just 198. Now, last year, it was 270 with an XBA of 262. And the year before that, in 2023, it was an XBA of 264 with a 198 average. So again, he's somewhere in between 2023 and 2024. But what really hurt him last year was the batting average on his slider. In 2024, it was 258 compared to a 228 expected batting average. So he had some bad luck in 2024. Certainly, I don't think he's as bad as he was in 2024. Again, he's probably more like his 2022, 2023 years. His four-seamer averages 96, so he throws hard. I'm also curious to see what, if anything, the Braves do with his split finger that he's never really thrown a ton, but it gets a lot of good swing and miss. So can the Braves do something with that? And then the last name here I wanted to talk about, Wander Suero, on a minor league deal, but he has an option left. So again, not likely to start the season on the opening day roster. Pitched one Major League game last year, didn't record an out, but from 2018 to 2020, this guy was a really solid reliever. He was with the Nationals in 2019 when they won their World Series, pitched 71 and a third innings with 81 strikeouts, had a save that year as well. In the minors last year, he had a 2.66 ERA and a 1.20 whip and 67 and two-thirds innings with 71 strikeouts. So really good at AAA last year, has been really good in the past, primarily a cutter that he throws, which used to be, sit more 91, 92. Now it's more 89, 90. So he's lost some velocity on it, but had a lot of success with it at the minor league level last year. So those are some guys I think could play some sort of role for the Braves this year. I think out of that group, Weems is the one I think that has the chance of making the biggest impact this year. We've at least seen him be decent in the not too distant past. Could he give you a Nick Anderson type of 2023 season? In that 2023 year, Nick Anderson on a minor league deal came in, pitched to a 3.06 ERA and 35 and a third innings with 15 holds. If you get something like that from Jordan Weems, where there's a point during the year where he's one of your setup men and he's holding that down and doing a good job of that, I think that would be huge impact for this Braves team. So he's the one out of this group that I've talked about that I think are guys that maybe you're not expecting much out of. And I'm not talking about the rookies. I'm going to talk about the rookies next Monday when we do our Rookie of the Year candidates. But those non-roster invitees, some veterans, ones that could come up and have some sort of key role for the Braves this year, I think Jordan Weems, for me, is the one that is most likely to do that. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Again, next week, we'll look at the Rookie of the Year candidates. So we'll talk about an impact that a Drake Baldwin or AJ Smith-Shawver could have, maybe a Drew Hackenberg or Lucas Braun. We'll talk about those guys next week. But next on today's podcast, we're going to do an early preview of the 2025 MLB Draft as the college baseball season begins this weekend. I cannot wait. Super excited for it to get some baseball. We'll talk about that here next. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to find it than on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action, and if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get a $150 bonus in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. You take a look at FanDuel.com and see the World Series odds out there. The Yankees and Braves are behind the Dodgers right now, but they have the second and third best odds, with the Dodgers clear favorites at plus 250. And over on the NBA side, you look over there And the NBA Finals winners and the best odds are the Celtics at plus 195 and the Oklahoma City Thunder at plus 230. You can check all that out at FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/play-safe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way that you play. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen up each and every day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen solely. Getting caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball as spring training gets underway. Again, we're back to 5 episodes this week as we get ready for spring training. Pitchers and catchers for the Braves reporting on Wednesday. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves. We're approaching 12,000 subscribers there. Again, go follow us over on Instagram. We're approaching 100 followers over there. So we're way behind our count on YouTube, and make sure that you got all the notification bells and everything ready to go, locked and loaded. It is baseball season underway, and it's getting underway this weekend for college baseball. And I cannot wait. It's the first taste of baseball, first chance to see some of these players who could be on the Braves in the not too distant future. So I wanted to look at that a little bit today. We won't spend too much time on it, and then we'll get into the MLB news. But some of the top prospects in the upcoming draft: Ethan Holliday, that's going to be a familiar name for you. He is the consensus #1 player in this year's draft, son of Matt Holliday, brother of Jackson Holliday with the Orioles. The Nats have the first pick in the draft. So unfortunately, there's going to be a really good prospect, might be the best prospect in all of baseball in a year or two, is going to be going to the Nats. They have some really good young talent coming up due to the Nats. Jace Lavalette from Texas A&M, the second, viewed by many to be the second best prospect in this class. And then some of the top pitchers: Jamie Arnold for Florida State and Tyler Rimmer from UC Santa Barbara are the 2 top pitchers in this group. The Braves aren't likely to get any of those guys, but we'll see what happens. You never know, especially with the pitchers. You know, if one of them were to get injured, sometimes they fall later in the draft because of that. Don't wish that on anybody, but where the Braves are drafting at 22, not likely to get any of those guys I just mentioned, but at least wanted to let you know and highlight some of the top names in the upcoming draft in case you want to give them a watch this upcoming weekend. MLB Pipeline's first mock that they did back in December 10th, they had the Braves taking Cameron Appenzeller, left-handed pitcher from Glenwood High School in Chatham, Illinois. High ceiling, high school arm. The Braves haven't shied away from taking some high school arms in recent drafts. Most recent one included where they took Cam Caminiti. But what I've noticed when they've taken these high school arms in the first round, they haven't taken the ones that necessarily are built on a high ceiling. They've more so taken guys who are built on a high floor, and maybe there's some more room to grow. And maybe that's the case for this Appenzeller guy. I honestly don't know much anything about him, but it just seems like if the Braves are going to take a chance on that high school arm in the first round, they're generally going to take somebody that has a pretty low floor. That was the case with, Owen Murphy, J.R. Ritchie, and Cam Caminiti, guys that, have low floors, that they're going to be solid back end starters. They already have the command over a couple of pitches, but perhaps there's more in there. And we've seen more in there already for Owen Murphy and J.R. Ritchie. Hopefully we do for Cam Caminiti as well. So again, I don't know much about this Appenzeller guy. I don't know, what his floor is necessarily, but the only thing they had on him was that he's a high ceiling arm. And I feel like the Braves, if they're going to take a high school arm, it's going to be one that maybe has a little bit more of a lower or a high floor. I get this question all the time. Do the Braves continue to take pitching early in the draft, or do they start to focus on hitting? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The Braves have done a fantastic job of drafting and developing pitching. They've done a great job of going in the international market and finding good pitchers as well. Lara and Rowdy Reyes, hopefully, Fuentes, Reyes, they've done a really good job of just developing pitching in general. And I say this all the time when I get asked this question, because again, it's one of my most asked questions. I think it's a strategy they're going to continue to go with, because you always need starting pitching, whether you need it yourself because of pitchers getting injured all the time and you just need to have a constant flow of pitchers coming up. You need 1 or 2 pitchers every year that can come up and have an impact for you. And we've seen how well that's benefited the Braves, from, a Mike Soroka, an Ian Anderson, a Kyle Wright, a Schwellenbach, a Strider. You've seen guys coming up each and every year that have had some sort of impact for the Atlanta Braves. And it's imperative that you have that pitching depth ready to go each and every year. And so I think they'll continue to do that. And it's not just for what you need, but also the Braves have still been able to make trades because they have pitching to trade from. The only reason they could even entertain the possibility of making trades right now is because they have an AJ Smith-Shawver or a Hurston Waldrop who, have some value as starting pitchers. They have an Owen Murphy and a J.R. Ritchie that have some value as starting pitching prospects, a Cam Caminiti, even a Lucas Braun and a Drew Hackenberg. They have some arms that you could move in a deal. Obviously, different variety of deals for those types of pitchers, but teams are always in need of pitching. And what you have identified well in your system is that you can develop pitching. So I think that's what they're going to continue to do. They're going to take pitching early in the draft that they feel like, have those either low floor or high floors that they can work with to have get them to their ceiling, or they'll take some guys like a Drew Hackenberg that they've, or maybe see something that they have in their repertoire that they can build upon and make something more out of them, or that at least guys like a Blake Burkhalter that if it doesn't work out as a starter, you have the chance for them to fall back and be a really good reliever. So I think they'll continue to do that and then take some shots on bats later in the draft like they did with the Nacho Alvarez and Nick Montgomery from this past draft, guys like that they can kind of target later in the draft to do some things well. But pitching is their bread and butter. And I think that it just makes sense if you can do that, just to continue to draft and develop that, because you're always going to need pitching. Other teams are always going to need pitching. There's just not enough to go around. So you do it better than just about anyone. Why not continue to make that your focus? So I think they'll continue to take pitching at the top of the draft. Some college names to watch as the season begins. These are all players that might be available for the Atlanta Braves. They're kind of in that 10 to 25 area. Cam Cannarella of Clemson. Look, if you just like watching bat flips, you love watching energy, you love players that just get fired up, nobody gets more fired up playing baseball than Cam Cannarella. Now, if you're a little bit more old school, it might rub you the wrong way, but the kid is electric, and he probably has the best hit tool of any college hitter in this draft. He's also an elite defender in center field. You haven't seen the catch he made against Florida last year with the game on the line. Go back and watch that highlight. But Cam Cannarella, Clemson, do yourself a favor. Lock in on that kid. Really fun to watch at the plate, or really just fun to watch in general. Max Ballou, outfielder for Texas, might be the best all-around player in this draft. When you talk about hit, power, speed, defense, really good player. Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC this year as well. Luke Stevenson out of North Carolina might be the best catcher in the draft, although as an Auburn fan, I might argue for my guy, Ike Irish. But Ike Irish, really good hitter, could play catcher, but he might wind up at first base or in a corner outfield spot, but a really good bat. Trey Phelps out of Georgia. So in the backyard there, freshman All-American last year, draft eligible sophomore, turns 21 in June. Good contact and exit velocity. So maybe he falls to the Braves at 22, or he pushes his price, up so much that the Braves are able to snatch him at 22. Outfielder there as well, Trey Phelps. Kyson Witherspoon out of Oklahoma, power fastball with a good slider. Sounds like a profile that the Braves might like, should he fall to them at 22. And then Chase Shores out of LSU, 6'8", throws hard, coming off Tommy John surgery that he had in 2023. We'll see what he looks like in 2025. Could shoot up the board, or maybe he's so rusty and just doesn't like himself that he falls to the Braves at 22, and they get a kid with a lot of upside, big guy, big arm. So we'll see what happens there. But those are some of the college names for you to watch as the college baseball season begins this weekend. All right, next we'll get into some of the news, including some Ronald Acuña Jr. news, highlights, videos. Again, we'll take everything right now that we can get about Ronald or anybody else on the Atlanta Braves. We'll discuss that here next. So not a lot of news the last couple of days, as again, offseason is winding down and spring training getting started. One big name still out there is Alex Bregman, waiting to see where he's going to go. Have no idea. Maybe the Red Sox, maybe the Cubs, maybe back to the Astros. There's been rumors that he has 6-year deals out there on the table, but for some reason he hasn't signed it yet. So I don't know where Alex Bregman is going to go at this point. I do see news here. The Yankees have a minor league deal with veteran left-handed reliever Tyler Matzek. So that is quite disappointing. Would have loved to see him. If he's going to take a minor league deal, why not just take one with the Braves? But the Braves just aren't bringing anybody back this year. We don't care. If you did some great things for us in the past, you're out of here. So Tyler Matzek goes to the Yankees on a minor league deal. Wish him all the best. Hope he gets things going once again, but certainly hoping or wishing the best for Tyler Matzek. Other big names out there, Nick Pivetta, one of the bigger pitchers out there. He has a qualifying offer attached to him. Andrew Heaney still didn't sign. Jose Quintana, Kyle Gibson, names that I mentioned. David Robertson on the reliever side. So still some names out there. We talked about this a bit the other day on the Friday Mailbag podcast. You haven't listened to that yet. We could see some teams waiting, teams that have full 40-man rosters waiting until they can put players on the 60-day IL like a Joe Jimenez to open up a 40-man roster spot before making some moves. So we might see a lot of moves happen later this week as spring training gets underway and teams can move those players to the 60-man IL. We will see. Now, Hector Gomez posted a couple of videos now of Ronald Acuña Jr. and actually Ronald on Instagram. One of the cool things I have about Instagram now is mainly following Ozzy. He's hilarious. Anytime you can get more video of Ozzy, the better. But Ronald also shared a video of him doing some running. It looked like he was already in Northport training, so that is good. The post from Hector Gomez said Acuña Jr. looking for a 50-50 season. I doubt this year because, look, if I get 130 games of Acuña this year, I'm going to be ecstatic. But I think that's probably on the high end. And if he does a 50-50 season in 120, 130 games, that would be pretty incredible. But either way, he looks great. Good to see him already there, working, running, exercising. Like I've said multiple times, just based on what I hear from Alex Anthopoulos, and maybe at this point you just don't believe anything that comes out of Alex Anthopoulos' mouth, and I get that and understand that, but I don't hear a lot of concern about he or Spencer Strider and how they're progressing and how they're doing physically. I think the main thing is they're just trying to be overly cautious with both of these guys, and for good reason. So yeah, we might not see Acuña till May. I think if he wanted to, and if the Braves wanted to, I think he could be ready by opening day. Now we got to see what he looks like swinging a bat, and hopefully we get to see some of that in spring training. Hopefully he does play in some games in spring training. Doesn't have to. If he's not going to be back until, early May, they could just start him on a rehab assignment in Gwinnett. He hasn't played in a while, so certainly needs the at-bats to kind of shake the rust off. But again, just good news on Ronald, seeing him running, seeing him getting back healthy. Can't wait to see more of him and get more news on him in spring training. The Dodgers brought back Kike Hernandez. Also, the sun is really hot. I mean, who didn't know that? Who didn't see that coming? Kike Hernandez always is going to end up a Dodger. I didn't know they had any room left. We'll see what happens. I don't know where Kike is going to get the playing time. But either way, the Dodgers bring back their guy in Kike Hernandez. So that's all the news. Not a lot going on at the moment. The wild one, Cam Caminiti and maybe Cam Cannarella on the same future team. Sign me up, the Cams. It'd be a lot of fun. Again, I don't know that Cam's Cannarella is going to fall to the Braves in this draft, but a very exciting player for sure. Argenis, Spitzer 1, Spitzer 2, choose your favorite ace to dispatch the other team. It'll be fun. Yeah, you got two Spencers. So what do we got? A Spencer Strider, a Spencer Schwellenbach, and then a Cam Caminiti and a Cam Cannarella. We'll just take all the people with the same names. All right, but that's all I got for you today. PJ's Braves, Wild One, Jeff Berry with me here live. Jeffrey Humphreys, as always, every day. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Argenis, Jeff, having some good conversations in there. Appreciate you. Kevin Hurd, anyone in the ACC or SEC we should be looking at in NCAA? Some of the names I just mentioned, I'm going to be covering the SEC over for College Baseball Central. You want to go give them a follow. I'll be covering the SEC for them this season, so looking forward to that. And they do a great job covering baseball. Docs Cards, 13K by opening day. Let's get us there. Go hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And Docs Card with the Strider City Connect jersey. So that's pretty sweet. Josman Rodriguez, Merritt Houston from Wake is a player I like. Dansby Swanson I like. There's a lot of good players at Wake. I don't know. I sleep on Wake players just because that offensive environment they have there is so hitter friendly. I never know what to do with some of the bats that they have coming out of there. Again, it's football over. Happy start of baseball season. Be honest, this is probably the first Super Bowl I didn't watch a single second of, like not one single second of the Super Bowl this year. By the time I got home on Sunday night, I checked the score on my phone. It was basically over at that point. So me and the wife sat down, had dinner, and watched Fever Pitch, which I think is my new favorite baseball movie. Hot take there. But nothing explains me and my wife better than Fever Pitch. If you haven't watched that, go give it a watch as you get ready for baseball season. That's kind of where my journey begins right now as I get ready for the season. I start watching all my favorite baseball movies. So let me know your favorite baseball movie. Let me know if you think I'm an idiot for liking Fever Pitch. Let me know if it's your favorite movie as well. Appreciate you all for joining me on today's podcast. AJ Evans in here at the end as well. Thank you so much for joining. Jordan Watley. Appreciate you all supporting me here at Locked On Braves. Again, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and leave me a comment down below. Please go follow me over on Instagram if you haven't already. Shoot me a message over there with a question. I'll answer it on Instagram. Follow us on social media at Locked On Braves, at Shortstop Ball. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and we will talk to you next time.